On 29 January 2026, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order threatening to impose additional tariffs on countries that sell oil to Cuba. This, in response, led to Cuba declaring an international emergency, with the country experiencing widespread blackouts and soaring prices. Thousands of Cubans hit the streets outside of the US Embassy in Havana, demanding the release of the former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. US Charge d'Affaires Mike Hammer, during his weekend visit to the Trinidad province, was even heckled by the protesters. In a social media post, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez denounced the move and framed it as a hostile act against the people of Cuba. Such actions against Cuba cast a shadow of uncertainty, with consequences that could shake the region. In this video, we will look how US actions against Cuba could unfold and what it could mean for the region. Relations between US and Cuba were not always solo. Before 1959, Cuba was an US client state, with US dominating over 70% of Cuba's foreign trade. However, by the end of 1950, corruption, inequality, and political repression set the stage for a revolution, which brought Fidel Castro and his revolutionary movement in power. Under the new administration, Cuba nationalized all US-owned assets, seizing approximately $1.7 billion in US oil resources. Cuba allied with the Soviet Union and also tried to host nuclear missiles on their island. The US decided to sever all relations and even attempt to invade the country. The United States later imposed comprehensive economic embargo on Cuba, which persisted till to this day. The embargo makes it illegal for all US corporations to do business in Cuba. It also bars any and all commercial, economic, and financial activities between both countries. Since the 1960s, the Cuban trade embargo persisted. Relations between both countries have seen brief normalizations during the Obama era, due to Obama receiving nearly half of Cuban American votes. But after Trump took office in 2017, he reinforced all business and travel restrictions and suspended all sanction relief, calling for a better deal. On 30 January 2026, after Trump came back to the White House for the second time, he signed a new executive order to tariff countries that supply oil to Cuba. In response to Trump's sanctions, Mexican state oil company Pemex slashed oil exports from 20,000 barrels to 7,000 barrels per day. Subsequently, after arresting Nicolas Maduro, US vessels seized Venezuelan oil shipments to Cuba, which could further push Cuba's economy on the brink of collapse. China has also framed the policy as interference in Cuba's trade sovereignty and has vowed to increase food aid to Cuba. Trump expects, through such tough stance, it could force Cuba to the negotiating table on Washington's terms, limit resources to Cuban regime that may harm US national interest. Additionally, the move is expected to project US powers in its neighborhood at minimal cost. Cuban state-run media was quick to denounce the new executive order. expressing concern that these new sanctions on oil could cripple Cuba's electric generation, water supply, and health services, which will exacerbate the already severe economic crisis. Trump's interference in Cuba's oil imports haven't gone down well with the Cuban public, where some critics call it an act of war. Oil is Cuba's economic choke point. US sanctioning Cuba's regional allies could push the region to further instability. It may also fracture the Cuba Venezuela regional axis and make the region more susceptible to US influence.